Hello everybody, so an event that we look forward to every single year, the Grad Cracker and Mercedes Formula One webinar. Welcome to all of our students and graduates. I'm really looking forward to bringing you up to speed with everything that is new at Mercedes Formula One. Similar format to the webinar last year, we are meeting with Angela, who's the HR coordinator, and 4 IPs or industrial placement students. And they've bonded together today. So we've got 2 groups. So we've got the boys and the girls, all uniformed, all looking smart. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. I'm really not sure that Mercedes Formula One needs an introduction, but Angela, could you just give us a bit of an update to what's new, anything exciting about your future plans, which you can share with us?
So I would say there's always something new and exciting going on at Mercedes. The world of Formula One is just always extremely dynamic and challenging, especially with our ever-evolving regulations. So it'll be quite an exciting time for our new cohort of industrial placements to join us in July 2022.
Yeah, and you're fairly new, Angela, to Mercedes as well, aren't you? So yeah. I can't believe they've done this to you, poor thing. Chuck you in at the deep end. So from what is your role at Mercedes? What do you get up to? Oh, Angela, we can't hear you.
Hello?
We can. Yeah, you're back now.
All right. So as my role as HR coordinator, I'm supporting all the hiring managers and I'm liaising with all of the applicants. So you'll probably see my name on a lot of the correspondence.
Oh, brilliant. So it's really nice for the students watching that they can put a face to a name. Yes. So thank you very much for that introduction, Angela. What we're going to do now is move on to the IPs and just explain a little bit more about where they went to where they are attending university, because you are placements. I need to remember that you're not graduates just yet. I don't want to age you. So where you currently go to university. So we're going to start with Charles. So Charles is studying aerospace at the University of Bath. Give everybody a wave, Charles. So we just know who you are. Thank you. We've got Ali, who's currently studying general engineering at Cambridge. So have you made your mind up about what you're going to specialise in your final year?
Yeah, so at the moment I've decided to do manufacturing engineering, but I wasn't 100% sure. And this is actually one of the reasons I wanted to do this internship, to decide not only what I want as a future career path, but what to study in 3rd year. And yeah, so it could be the case that actually after this internship, I sort of moved towards mechanics and stuff like that, which is more what I'm doing here. Yeah. But yeah, at the moment, I'm still very open-minded.
Brilliant. And if you do go down that route, what have you done or been involved in that's made you think, oh, actually, I really do have an interest for that specific area?
So I think I do like sort of the way the car behaves, and what I've done in this internship so far is just sort of analyzing the behavior of the car and trying to optimize it for the track. And at the moment, that's been really interesting. And it could be the case that actually I'd want to move in towards that sort of specialization. Yeah.
Brilliant. Perfect. Thanks very much, Ali. And we're going to be hearing more from Ali later on about everything that he's been doing so far during his placement. So let's meet the girls now. So we've got Nicole. Give everybody a wave, Nicole. So Nicole is studying mechanical engineering at Birmingham. And last but not least, Amy is studying bioengineering at Sheffield. So thank you everybody for joining us today. I like what me and Jess like to do is just have a quick fire breaking the ice round.
We do.
So we do. So I'm going to start with Angela. Are you reading your fun fact?
Well, we have a lot of fun facts.
I bet you do.
One that I really like, and something that I've enjoyed a lot since joining here, is our social media team. I really think they're just absolutely ace. I love all of our social media posts. I think it brings quite a lot of fun and humor to Formula One, and also really promotes our brand.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, that's a good one. I've never heard from about like a different team before. Thank you very much for that, Angela. Amy, I'm going to move on to you. Oh, Amy, can you hear me? I think the girls. Are you back, Amy? If not, I'm going to go to the boys. Ali?
Yeah, so the food is really good. But also, if that's not enough, the engineers sometimes bring cakes. It's like almost every day you get cakes in the kitchen. But is like, once the email is sent, you have a 5-minute window with which the cake, but then it's all gone. So you've got to be quick.
Cake stampede.
I mean, food is very important, you know, it feeds the brain. So what do you have there? Do you have a canteen, or well, how does that all work?
Yeah, so we've got a canteen where we have lunch is served, and they also serve dinner and breakfast. But yeah, outside of that, it's just the engineers themselves bringing cakes.
Oh, nice.
That's great to see. Great.
Is that what you aspire to go back to be an engineer and bringing cake?
Yeah.
You're gonna have to be swatting up on Mary Berry.
Yeah.
And Charles, on to you. So your fun facts, please.
Yes, so mine is that I suppose it's more apparent after a race win, but there is such a buzz about the office and everyone's so determined to add performance to the team and the car. So I mentioned after a race win, we all wear our green winners tops into work, which is really nice. It's almost like a celebration of the team's success. And everyone goes around congratulating each other. And even as placement students, we're congratulated for our like the place, the like part that we played in the team's success, which is just really, really nice.
Yeah, definitely. I bet the vibe is completely different as well, isn't it? I bet everybody's like completely uplifted.
Absolutely, yeah. Especially
perfect.
this season, like those precious race wins, it's such a buzz after.
Oh,
I think this will be really interesting, this session, because I know when we spoke to you last year, I couldn't believe how team orientated you all are. Like, I was really surprised how, you know, you hear, oh, you know, it's about the team, you want a good team player, but it really is, isn't it? It's such a driver for you all to be feeling part of it. You know, this is not, I mean this to sound derogatory, even if you are just, you know, just started on your placement, you're already a member of the team, you know, you've got your t-shirts, everyone's saying thank you, welcome. I just think that is such a lovely thing. And it really shows off you all in a great light, and shows really what you actually are all about.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, is so intrinsic in the team's culture. And I think it just trickles down right from the top.
Yeah,
it's really nice. Yeah,
brilliant. You're back, girls.
Hi, girls.
We lost you for a second.
Moving, so it should be a bit better now.
I can just imagine you all moving around thinking, have I got signal in here? Put it down, let's go, we've got signal. Right, I'm glad that you're back, girls. So what we're going to do is we're still on the quick fire round, so you haven't missed out on the opportunity of giving your quick fact. So I'm going to go to you first, Nicole, if you could give us your exciting facts about Mercedes Formula One.
So mine is that we have monster fridges located all around the factory that get refilled with free Monster energy drinks that anyone could take any of. And so in my department especially, there's a little bit of a game of who can have the most different types of Monster energy drinks at their desk at one moment.
Oh, wow. I bet you're all climbing the walls, aren't you?
I mean, most of them don't actually get drunk because people like having their collection, so they don't then want to drink them, so then they put them away.
You might get some limited edition ones one day, and then in the future it might make you a millionaire if you say, I had this from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Good fact. Thanks, Nicole. One day. Amy, on to you. Quick fact, my love.
So you can volunteer as often as you want to work at the race weekends. Well, not at them, but in the RSR, the race support room, which is really cool because you feel like already I've done it once. Nicole was there that weekend actually, and I'm doing it this weekend, and you can just do it as much as you want, and you get free food, so that's always a bonus.
It's a bit of a running theme.
And I was going to say
food and drink.
You can tell by your students it's food and drink. So these race weekends, then, give us a bit of an overview. What would you be doing this weekend, for example?
I'm just doing the Sunday this weekend, which is good. It's very flexible. You can do whatever. But yeah, sometimes it depends. It depends on what department you're in as well. But there's a strategy department. I know some people have done that. You're also listening to radios. You can go on this channel and say if you see something that another team's doing, which is, so you do feel like you are actually a part of the team and doing something to help. So that's really nice.
Yeah. again, it's that team spirit, isn't it, that, you know, the boys were talking about before. Right, thank you very much for your interesting facts. They were really fascinating, especially about the food and drink. I'm just getting hints from my office when we get back there. So right now, this is to Nicole, Charles and Amy. I know that this time, nearly to the very day last year, you were all sat there on the other side as students watching into the Gradcracker and Mercedes Formula One webinar. So when you were watching last year, Charles, I'm going to come to you first. What was it about the webinar? You know, what was it, obviously, apart from mine and Jessica's fine performances, but what was it last year that you thought, oh, this is what makes me want to apply to this company?
I guess it's coming back to what I said previously. It's just the atmosphere and the culture, which comes across in pretty much everything that the team does. I guess the best way to sum that up is no blame. And it's that mentality that if one of us makes a mistake, it's not the individual, it's the team's mistake. And again, this trickles down right from the top, right from Toto. And it's like probably, I'd say, like the perfect atmosphere and culture to kind of develop as a professional engineering.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Charles. And I'm going to move on to Nicole next, please. So this time last year when you were watching the webinar.
Yeah, so mine was about mainly like the variety of things that you can get involved in. So not only do you have your department, where the department that I'm in involves a lot of different projects, working with a lot of different other departments as well. But on top of that, it is the things like the race support that you can get involved with, even if it's got absolutely nothing to do with your department.
Yeah.
Just purely being like a placement here means that you can go and do the transcribing, listening to radio messages and stuff, which is just really cool to actually be involved in race weekends rather than sort of the normal just 9 to 5 office job. There's just so much more that you can actually be involved with.
Yeah, I think if everybody remembers the webinar last year, me and Jess certainly do, we were talking about it this morning, and we showed a bit of a clip of the race support room on a racing day. So what you can do, guys, watching this webinar, you can go to the Mercedes Formula One hub. That video is still on there for you to have a look at. And then obviously, if you're looking at watching this webinar today, the existing webinar is still on there as well. So it's still worth a look to go back to, because everything, you know, that Charles and Nicola has just mentioned, it'll ring true when you rewatch the webinar from last year. Amy, I'm going to finish with you on the same question.
Yeah, so I also watched it last year, and I think the biggest thing was just, I've always watched F1, always been a fan, but I just thought that a big team like Mercedes would be super daunting. I just thought it'd be a bit scary, but they all seemed really happy, really comfortable, and like they blended quite well. Like they weren't lower than everyone, they weren't like inferior. Yeah. And to be honest, coming here, that's exactly what it's like. I think Charlie's touched on it too. Like, I don't know, you're not seen as being any lower, you're just the same level as everyone. It's like not hierarchical at all, which is really nice.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, that definitely came across. It made mine and Jess's, when we were doing the prep session before with the IPs here, it made mine and Jess's day, didn't it, Jess, to hear from all of you guys saying, oh, we watched you last year, that's what made us want to join Mercedes. So yeah, thanks for all your feedback there. So Ali, you've been a fan of Formula One for a few years now. Is it as good as you thought it was going to be? Is there any misconceptions that you want to cover off? Are you still as excited about Formula One?
I actually got into Formula One a few years ago, as you mentioned, watching Drive to Survive. And I think it really effectively showed the complexity behind the sport that's not always seen on TV. And it just shows the determination and the passion of like the work that goes into making the car as perfect as possible, and that's also as much on the driver's side as it is on the engineering side.
Yeah.
And like coming here, you sort of see why it is. I mean, you've got a whole team of diverse and passionate people all working towards the same goal, and they're sort of creating and using some of the most novel technologies in the automotive industry. And yeah, it's good to appreciate it, like know where you are and the technology and the work that goes into this, and take a step back and look at the big picture, and then see how people think and how the process of getting things done is taken. And yeah, I think at the moment I'm very grateful for it, and it's been really interesting so far.
Yeah, thanks, Ali. And when I've watched programs,
sorry, Carla. Can I add to that real quick?
Of course you can.
What Ali said, a part of the team culture and something that's really strong here is that you don't have to be a Formula One fan to be a member of the team. Everybody here is so passionate and just at the top of their game and working towards the same goal. So you don't necessarily have to be Formula One's #1 fan. If you are the top in your field and you are passionate, that's something that we want and that we're looking for.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for that, Angela. And what I was going to say, following on from Ali's point as well, when I've watched programs about, Mercedes, not necessarily just Mercedes, but Formula One, you have to be. It's not just being, mentally aware, mentally fit. The physicality of it all as well, isn't it? Is quite, quite strong. When you're working within the industry. What we're going to move, Angela, I'm coming back to you. So the opportunities are currently live on GradCracker for our students to apply for. So just give the students a bit of a flavour to what opportunities are open to applications, please.
Okay, so we have a total of 27 industrial placements. Yeah. So on GradCracker, you might not see all 27. That's just because we have multiple roles available in various departments. I would encourage you to look at the GradCracker site and look at all of our different roles. I mean, we have roles from aero to IT to performance simulation, just to name a few. Yeah. It's quite a few. A whole broad range for students to apply. And then I would say, applicants are welcome to apply for more than one, just to be mindful that you have to apply using multiple applications.
Yeah, I'm just writing a note of that, because what I do at the end of these webinars, Angela, is I turn into a bit of a nag and I say, well, this is what you need to do now. This is your to-do list. I just have to write notes just to remind myself. So obviously everybody's going to be excited, Angela. Everybody's going to want to apply to these opportunities. Give us a bit of an idea about timelines that students should be working towards, and examples of closing dates and when the assessment centres will be held.
So the closing date is 1 minute before midnight on Sunday, October 17th. Yeah. So I would say #1 tip, please don't leave it till the last minute. Prepare your answers well in advance. We want you to be mindful of the timings around it. We do have quite a rigorous application process where we're asking for answers to questions and free text fields, along with uploading a CV and covering letter. So, it's not just a quick application where you send off a CV. We do ask candidates to engage quite heavily in the application process.
Yeah, no problem at all. And we're going to move on to that in more detail towards the end of the webinar. Sorry, Jess.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, I know we're going to touch upon that, but it's just something I was surprised with when I heard about your application process. It's very hands-on at your end, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And you look through a lot of the applications physically. Yeah. You don't have almost a system that sifts them out for you. Is that still the case this year?
So we are looking at every single application that comes in, and definitely every single one is really important. And we want to give applicants the time that obviously they've put in, and we are putting in that time on the other side as well.
That is such a good trait. It's really, again, a nice compliment on the business that you're giving each individual that time back. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight that because I thought that was absolutely brilliant that you offer that.
Yeah, good point, Jess. And thinking from a student, then thinking about applying to Mercedes Formula One, Angela and her team were working away, reading all of your applications individually. So make sure make sure it's a good, well thought out application. Make sure you mention to Angela that you've watched this webinar and you've done all your prep and all your research. Charles is laughing. I know that he did it before. So it's nothing weird. So what I'm going to do now is I think we're going to move on to the
roles. Yeah. So Amy, I'm going to come to you first, if that's okay. If you could just tell me a bit about your current role and what life is looking like for you.
Sure. So mine is the electronics placement. They are doing that again this year. I was actually their first 13-month placement. Previously, they've done 6 placements, so it's been a bit different. So most people had someone before them to pass over, but I didn't. So that was a bit tricky at the start, but I was given quite a lot of support, so that was fine. But I'm in the systems group. So I test things that the dev or development team make that will go on the car, which is quite cool. But I've done a few projects along those lines too, just to give me a bit more of experience with that. I've used quite a few languages, and I've actually got a project that's going out to the race this weekend in Turkey.
Oh, wow.
To get tested, which is pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, that's
I want to ask what is it, but I'm not.
I mean, I can say it's a piece of equipment. It's not actually going to be on the car, but it will be used. Yeah.
Because that's another thought as well. It's not always necessarily just about the car, is it? You know, again, it's the team's equipment. And I think I forget that as well. You know, it's making sure as well the whole team is working as efficiently as possible, not just the car and the driver. So yeah, interesting. So in terms of then, if this bit that you are testing going out on the weekend.
Jess is like, what can I say? What can I say?
I know what you ask. What in terms, will you look at the results at the end of it? You know, did it perform as well as you wanted it? Will you get involved in that full process of the testing and look at the results after?
Yeah, well, to be honest, this is more just a prototype. So I'm just actually more asking for feedback so I can then improve it. It's just a prototype, and then it'll be made into the actual thing, whatever that thing is. But then it will be like a whole package, and it will be used. Yeah.
Brilliant. This is going to be a question I'm going to ask you all. But are you surprised with how much responsibility you've been given already?
I'd say so, and also how much information they gave us on the first day. It was quite a lot.
Really?
It's like, you're already trusting me with all of this stuff. It's like, wow, okay, because like you have access to everything. Well, pretty much. There's a few folders you can't see, but like pretty much everything. I can go into your department and see what you guys are doing. Like, it's very open, and you're invited. I think our first day it was like a debrief. So we went into a debrief on the Monday. We joined, which was quite cool because we heard all about, I think it's the Silverstone weekend, and obviously it was a bit dramatic after that. So that was quite interesting to hear it straight away from inside.
How did you cope with that situation, Amami? Because I'm just thinking from a student's point of view, watching in, they might be a little bit daunted by that. So were you expected to memorize all the information that you were given during the debrief, and how did you kind of manage yourself in that situation?
Definitely more just for interest. It's not like you're tested on it. It's just, you don't have to attend them. Like, it's just because we all are super interested because we want to do well. So everyone always, you see everyone around the office putting their headsets on. Normally they'd be in the race bays, but because of COVID, they're online at the moment. But I don't know, it's just out of interest, and you hear all of why we did this on lap, whatever. And there's maybe watching, you were like, why did we do that? But then they'll explain it all, and it's like, yeah, it's really cool.
Oh, brilliant. I want to be part of the team. Pick me. Nicole, coming to you next, my love. Yeah, well, same question. Your role, what's life like? Tell us all the exciting stuff you're doing.
So I work in design process development. So that's the placement that I'm on. Our department's a little bit different to Amy. So Amy's the only placement in her department, whereas mine, there's 6 of us.
Okay.
So we're very much like a placement orientated department. But it means that we get involved in lots and lots of different projects around the whole company.
Okay.
Not even just the Formula One side, but we also do some of the applied science work. We do some work with some of the other companies that Mercedes Formula One work with. So that's really good. I do a lot of focus on materials testing. So whenever we want a new material or something's happened that we haven't expected with a part or anything like that, a lot of that work comes to me, and I sort of develop plans and liaise with companies that can do some testing and all that sort of things. And then the bit that I was most surprised about was when I first joined, the placement that I was taking over from, he was just finishing up some of this testing, and we'd had the results and they were all ready to be finalised. And so I then went to a meeting with the chief engineer of the design office to discuss all of these results and everything. And when I was told I had to go to this meeting, I was very nervous and very worried. And I sat down, and it was just a really nice chat. Just there was no pressure, there was no anything. You just sat, everyone had a laugh, everyone had a chat about their weekends, everything that they've been up to. We got onto the results, we discussed them. they said whether they were happy or not, whether we needed to do some more testing.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was just no pressure whatsoever, even when you're talking to people really high up in the company.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like, it's crazy that
It's
you're
interesting.
talking to people like that.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions, actually. You know, have you met senior members of the team yet? I know, Charles, you mentioned Toto. Have you kind of come across any of the senior members as well, of aka Lewis Hamilton? Or
Yeah, so I've seen a few of the drivers just walking around. So we were all sat at lunch the other day. And Lewis just walked behind us, just going into the factory.
Wow.
But I mean, we're all part of the same team, so we all work together.
What the hell should
We're one team, so
Exactly.
And that's something that's really strong in our everyday culture. So yeah, we are one team. We see them all.
You'll be stood in the queue for food with some of the drivers just queuing up to buy food from the canteen. It really is just incredible, the fact that you've gone from watching these people on TV to just being stood next to them.
That's a really good point, Angela. They couldn't do it if it wasn't you guys doing it behind them as well. You know, it is just one team, isn't it, that makes, you know, you all winners. So that's a good point. Yeah, it's really exciting. Charles, coming to you next, your current role, please.
Absolutely. So I'm an aerodynamics industrial placement within the experimental group of the aero department. So that basically encompasses pretty much all experimental systems within the aero department. But we primarily focus on the development of tools and systems which help provide performance on the car, such as wind tunnel infrastructure.
Yeah, brilliant. And what's your experience has been like so far? I'm guessing it's been very hands-on. You get all involved in the testing, like Nicole and Amy have said. What kind of experience have you had with that?
Yes, so far it's been incredibly hands-on. I've got my hands on some smaller scale wind tunnel systems, running my own tests, which is mad. Tomorrow we're actually going to another wind tunnel over at Silverstone, our wind tunnel, and we'll be running a test on some bits that I've designed there, which again is quite mad as a placement student. But yeah, I've had loads of hands-on experience. In fact, just this week I've been on a rotation around the department in the model shop, and I've been preparing parts with the model shop team to go to the wind tunnel, which has been fantastic hands-on experience.
And for anyone that doesn't know, why is the wind tunnel so an important part of the testing?
That's a very good question. So we kind of have three ways primarily to test components or bits for the car. You have track testing, which is quite rare. You have wind tunnel testing, and you have computational fluid dynamics, or CFD. And they all have various advantages and various pitfalls. The wind tunnel is incredibly repeatable and very accurate, because you're able to control the conditions there particularly well. It's an incredibly valuable tool.
And you know, you said about going to Silverstone. So for anyone that doesn't know, Charles, obviously you are all in the same building. So whereabouts are you exactly in the UK now?
So we're in a little town called Brackley, which is part of Northamptonshire.
Yeah.
And it's about, I think Silverstone is about a 15-minute drive down the dual carriageway. So it's not far from Silverstone at all.
So another good question there. Have you all relocated to that location? And can I ask about the support that Mercedes have offered in terms of relocating? Has it been even just a network, you know, in terms of helping relocate?
I'm smiling there just because I've just wrote down relocation. Same brains.
Same brain, sorry.
So we send out information about the local area to all of our successful candidates. You know, we want the moving experience to work to relocate here to be as smooth as possible. Yeah. And then we send all the info to our local estate agents, and they are great. You know, I know when I moved here, my estate agent, he was born and bred in Brackley, you know, couldn't say enough good things about it. And, you know, it was great. And Brackley itself is a really, really lovely place.
That's really good. And then the reason why I wanted to bring this up, because again, I've just come off a session this morning speaking to students that considering doing a year in industry, and being flexible on your location is definitely going to help, isn't it? And whether it be financial support or even just putting you in the right contact with people, the support that the offer can help with is really, really beneficial. So it's great that you do offer some help, which is good to know. Ali, I'm going to come to you next. Simple question. I know you've touched upon a bit about your role already, but yeah, just in a bit more detail, and any projects you we're currently working on.
Yeah, so I'm in the tire team of the vehicle dynamics group. So I essentially run about 1,000 simulations for every race weekend, each sweeping different parameters on the car. So basically on the car, we can change a lot of things. For example, say the rear ride height or the rear wing or the front wing, like every team. And we sort of try and find the best combination for every race weekend. And this is before the car even comes to the track. So it's very useful, especially now, because recently we've had a reduction in the time for free practice sessions. So we're actually more limited on track. So it's good to have a solid base and the fastest car possible theoretically, so that the drivers only have to make small tweaks in order to make it faster. Or more comfortable. And then so that's usually what I do for a race week. And then during the race weekend itself, I mostly help with sort of running processing of telemetry, some sensor calibrations as well, and some competitor analysis. So I think Nicole or Amy mentioned about it. It's looking at the competitor radio, and you can sort of message in the intercom of Mercedes if you see something important, and so you really contribute to the team. And then I also process some tire data, which then gets sent to the race engineers and the strategists, both trackside and in the race support. Outside of that, it's sort of like some development work, so making sort of the process of analyzing things more easy, or finding new relationships between sort of tire parameters, so that we can try and find some performance and make things more accurate, the simulations.
Sorry, and I've just got a quick question then. So is your workload predominantly based on the results from the race weekend? So is everything, have your race weekend, and then following on from that, are you analysing data from that weekend and then thinking about what you want to change for the next race?
Mostly, the most part is preparing for the weekend.
Yeah.
Called the pre-event. So you sort of, there's sort of different teams where there's the pre-event team, the on-event team, and the post-event team. So some people analyze pre-event, which is what I'm in, and then there's other people who try and analyze the post-event and try and see what happened during the race, or looking at the telemetry. I don't do too much post-event. I do a little bit surrounding the tires, but outside of that, it's not too much.
You must have a lot to do though, pre-event though, because I'm just thinking, I know nothing about Formula One, but you might be the weather conditions say might be forecast to be sunny, but then the day before it's absolutely chucking down with rain and thunder and lightning. So you'd have to be quite dynamic to change things up a bit and make sure that the car is fit for purpose on the day. Yeah.
So when it rains, it doesn't help our simulations. We can only we sort of prepare for different conditions, and not sure how much into detail I can go, so I won't go into
just do the no comment.
No comment. There are some parameters that we change, some conditions that we change. So we analyze a bunch of different things. I don't think I can mention what things, but lots of things are like
you just do lots and lots of stuff.
It's
all secret. Thanks, Ali.
Angela, I'm going to come to you next. We've talked a bit about the support that you offer in terms of relocating, but what support do you offer, the IPs in the first, few months of working as part of the team? And if you could talk a bit more about that in more detail.
Yeah, so I think the IPs can probably attest to this. Basically, on day one, you're part of the team, so you get the same amount of support and training like any new starter with our team. I think something that's really quite nice about our industrial placements is that they're 13 months. So you do get a handover. Unfortunately, Emmy didn't because she was the first in her department, but we do try to set it up so that there is a handover, and then you have that previous IP placement who's like kind of showing you the ropes and giving you a little bit of a heads up on what they're working on and potentially if that's transferring over. And I think that's a really nice touch to have that kind of in your first month, especially when you're brand new and you're new to the team.
Yeah, 100%. Another thing I want to touch upon and ask is there a chance for the IPs to come back as grads, and how can they secure that position whilst they're on the placement?
So the IP scheme is usually for the undergrad IP scheme anyway, is intended for all of the students to return to their home universities and complete their studies. Obviously, Mercedes are always on the look for the best and the brightest in their field. So, we do have grads who come back and apply to our roles. So we do sometimes see our IPs return to us after they've graduated and had a bit more experience, and then, potentially come back. So, I think the industrial placement scheme is fantastic for its experience opportunities. But the intention is the students do return to their universities and complete those studies.
Yeah, perfect. And next, I know we've kind of touched upon projects, and we've kind of touched upon with you guys, the experiences you've had so far, but is there anyone that wants to kind of add to maybe a favorite project that they've been working on, or something that they've got involved in that maybe they wouldn't have expected? Amy, have you got anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so obviously the one that's being sent to the track this weekend, that's been super fun. And that's nice because that's actually hardware. Like a lot of what I do is software, because electronics, obviously that's quite a big part, but it's nice because I can actually see that one going off. And also my first project was really cool. It meant that on my second day, literally on the Tuesday, I was holding a £100,000 steering wheel. I held all of our steering wheels. Wow. And so I calibrated those. And basically, so my first project was writing this program which kind of calibrates them, checks they're okay. But yeah, so that was a really cool project as well, because it meant that I was just holding Lewis Hamilton's steering wheel. My second day, I was just like, oh my gosh, really? If I drop this now? Yeah,
don't drop it. Because I was about to ask that, because every driver has their own steering wheel, don't they? So even in terms of how far they like to steer, or if they're like, it's less sensitive, more sensitive, is that right?
I don't deal with how they actually steer, because that's all mechanical. But I obviously, with electronics, I'm just looking at, I don't know, you've probably seen how complicated a steering wheel is in F1. There's so many buttons. Like gear shifters on there, you've got clutches, and that each driver they're slightly different in how they're set up as well, just preference. So I had to obviously compensate for that and do almost twice the work because of that. But no, it was really cool. Yeah.
Oh wow. It's like having a house in your hands, isn't it?
I was just thinking, I don't know what all the buttons do on my car. I'm just thinking, how on earth do they cope? I'm just like, is that a window or? Yeah.
Nicole, coming to you, favourite project that you've worked on so far?
So mine is my favourite just because it's so different to anything I expected. There's this thing in Formula One now called open source components, which basically means there's set components of the car that every single team has to make available to every other team. Okay. So take a part, every team has to upload all of their design data for that part. And I was involved in sort of processing and analysing the other teams. So it meant that I was getting data from Red Bull, Ferrari, Williams, and comparing it all to our designs and actually seeing where we could improve compared to other teams, or where we thought we had a better design than other teams. And coming to work at Mercedes, I never thought I'd then get the chance to also look at like Red Bull's like parts and Ferrari's parts and things like that as well. So that was just a really cool one to work on because it wasn't anything that I expected to be doing.
Yeah, I bet, again, there's so many questions I want to ask, which I'm probably not allowed to ask.
I'm surprised surprised, is this a silly question? Might be. I'm surprised that they are willing to share with you their, but I don't know what you've just mentioned, Nicole, but I'm surprised that they want to share knowledge like that, because obviously could you not think, oh, that bit of the Red Bull car is a little bit better than mine, so I'm going to nick it and then our cars are going to be better? Can we answer this question or not really?
It's not, it wasn't.
Sorry, Nicole. I would say, with the ever-changing Formula One regulations, I think that's one of the dynamic challenges that we have, and we have to work within quite a strict framework, and all the Formula One teams have to adhere to this. So I think that's quite an interesting aspect of the sport, in that every time every year is different. Every year there's something else that we need to take into consideration, or so it just keeps us on our toes all the time.
Oh, but that's brilliant, though, isn't it? It's just there's always some kind of new technology or something that you're always striving to improve, isn't there?
Yeah. It just an extra challenge as well. Just because even when you're looking at other teams' designs, that doesn't mean that because it works really well for the rest of their car, it might not work for our car.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's not like it's something that you can just take the Red Bull part and put it on our car. Like that just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So it just adds an extra element to the design process, really.
Yeah.
Of like learning, especially. And it's all about learning, like for everyone in Formula One.
Yeah. So it's just putting like another thought in the mix, isn't it? As well, just thinking, that might not work for me, but is there a different way that we could tweak it? Or no? Yeah.
Interesting. Charles, coming to you next. Favorite project?
Yeah, so I've recently been involved in the design of aerodynamic probes, which provide a useful tool in correlating those experimental methods that I mentioned before. So good at correlating track conditions with computational fluid dynamics and in the wind tunnel. So I've been involved in this project right from our initial CAD model to our first prototype, and then onto a production model, which has just been amazing seeing it right from the beginning right to fruition. It's been really exciting, and I guess it's my hope that eventually, if successful, it will end up on the car at some point.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see, do you think you will have finished any of those projects by the time you finished your placement, or? Yeah,
so I think we will probably finish before I finish my placement. Some of the work was handed on from previous students. So.
Do you keep in contact with those students? Because I suppose it's a similar situation. In the past, you've been handed a project. Was it you, Nicole, that said that? And you had to go and present those results. Do you ever let the other, the previous student know how it went? Or do you not stay in contact with them?
I don't know what kind of things would be involved in letting them know that current
Maybe
project.
maybe you're not allowed.
Yeah.
Maybe it's top secret.
It's top secret, top secret. If you're in the group, you know. If you're not in the group, you know. Ali, coming to you next. Favorite project so far?
Yeah, so one of the projects is actually ongoing. I'm a bit too early to have worked on a major project. It's mostly small things, but one of the smaller ones is one of the elements of our simulation isn't quite correlating well enough with reality, and it's really cool to just change a couple different parameters and then running the simulations again and seeing how it changes. And it also teaches you a lot about how the car drives. So if I change this, the car then does this. And it gives you a really good understanding about how the car drives as fast as possible. And yeah, I found that really interesting. So
I can imagine. So do you, because obviously there's the actual car which the driver will drive, but how many simulations of the car do you have? You have to make multiple cars for you all to test on, or do you just make one element of the car to test on that, or do you make the whole thing?
Well, you just sort of change a parameter and you just run that. I don't think I can go into.
Okay, no, doesn't matter. We'll move quickly on.
I think I'm going to do learning and development.
Yeah, let's do learning and development.
Girls, I'm going to start with you. I know you've touched upon, your projects that you've worked on and everything else, but what learning and development or training have you enjoyed and learnt the most from during your time at Mercedes Formula One? And Nicole, I'm going to ask you that first.
So when I first started, I had 3 days, I think it was, of CAD training.
Yeah.
So that was really helpful, not only just for here, but they taught a lot of stuff that had been touched upon at uni, but then you got here and they went through it all and you sort of understood why you did things in that way.
Yeah.
So it made a lot of things that you've learned at uni make a lot more sense in industry as well. So I really enjoyed that and found that really useful. And I think that's something that will again help me when I go back to uni for my final year and for my final year project.
Yeah. Have you got any idea about your final year project yet?
No idea.
Not yet. You're just enjoying your time there.
Yeah, I had some vague ideas before I started, and then I started here, and I'm just like, from what I can hear, I'm like, there's things that are so much more interesting, and I'm just going to try and narrow it down to work out what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know what, Nicole, that is the beauty of a placement. You know, this is why, you know, employers like Mercedes-Formula One offer these positions, because, you know, it's such a great way to get an insight into a business. And then, you know, I'm sure you'll all come out of this experience completely different people to the ones that you went in the experience. And I think, you know, there's so many case studies that also show that you perform a lot better in your final year after gaining this experience. You know, you can apply this knowledge that you've got now to your final year projects, and you know, you might, you know, even do even better than what you would have done if you hadn't got the experience. So it's an absolute win-win all round. So that's just a perfect example of it, isn't it?
And it just makes you think as well that, you know, you've been studying at university for so many years, and you know, you'd mentioned, Nicole, about CAD at university, and now you've actually put it into play, put it into action. You just think, oh, that's why I've been learning about it, and this is why it's, you know, it's so important in industry. Thank you, Nicole. Ami, I'm going to move on to you. So training and development, what have you experienced? And for you, I would like you to also tell us about how the training has been given. You know, is it a person presenting to you, or is it online? Just tell us a bit more about that.
So I haven't actually had an intensive training course as of yet, like Nicole's had with CAD, but you can basically request software through this IT portal, really easy to use. And I've had a bit of a mix. Someone will come over to your desk and tell you what to click and stuff, or someone will Teams call you and you'll just do it on there, or you'll do it on Teams messages. So it's a bit varied, but yeah, I guess also just being in electronics, I've learned a few more things hands-on wise, like surface mount soldering, which is crazy, so small. Didn't realize resistors were made that small. Just stuff like that. And then a lot of it is just teaching yourself as well. Like, you're not spoon-fed like you are. Well, you're not at uni. You're definitely not at uni, but at school you kind of are. But you have to go off and learn all these things, teach yourself things, and then know when is the right time to ask a question. Yeah. Because you need to choose who's going to be best to answer that question. And people really, like, they're so happy to answer your questions, aren't they? Like, anyone's happy to help. And then you just go to, like, whether it be your department. I've interacted with a few departments as well, depending on what their specialism is. So that's really useful as well. I
was just going to ask you that. So how do you get put in front of new departments? Is it just basically think, oh, I need an answer to this question? You walk into a department and pick the friendliest face and say, oh, help me. That's what I'd do.
It's actually usually just on Teams at the moment. But like, we've been in every day pretty much, though, no working from home kind of thing. Well, me anyway. But sorry, that sun's really bright. No, just a Teams message. And also my line manager is really helpful because he's been here for a long time, like, no offense to him, but he's been here a long time, so he just knows who to ask for what. So he'll just say, oh, drop this guy a message, and then I'll just search their name, or so just always point me in the right direction. So that's useful, just that experience above me.
It's good to know that people are there on hand as well to help you, isn't it? You look like you're being beamed up there, girls.
I know,
don't get sucked away into oblivion.
Angela, again, back to the culture, like, you know, everybody's promoting learning and working together and super supportive. And, you know, it is quite a remarkable place to work and learn, because everybody is super helpful and super supportive when you do have a question, and you need to work collaboratively.
I think everybody just wants the best for everybody, because, like, when you were saying before, it's one team, isn't it? So obviously everybody wants to share their own skills and knowledge with everybody else as well. Boys, I'm going to move on to you. So training development, Ali, I'm going to start with you. What's been your highlight of your learning and development so far?
Yeah, so similar to Army, it's more a hands-on experience. You sort of learn by doing. But having said this, as she mentioned, anyone is here to help. You can ask anyone, as long as it's the right question to the right person, you can ask them anything you want. I found that really useful. And also, as Angela mentioned, there's an onboarding process. So since it's a 13-month placement, you sort of get 1 month with the guy you're replacing. And I think mine was particularly useful because, as well as going through how to use the software and what to do, who to hand it to, and sort of the general workday, it was also really good at sort of teaching me the fundamental vehicle dynamics of the car.
Yeah.
And I'd done none of that at university, so it's completely new to me, and that's definitely been helpful for the work that I do at the moment. And yeah, I'm really grateful for that. So, do you have like a buddy or mentorship scheme there during your 30-month placement, or is it just in your team? So you just go to your line manager if you do have a question. So you actually get introduced to a lot of people, and you sort of you end up knowing so many people that no matter what your question, there is some guy who's really good at what he does, or she, and yeah, so there's you sort of go up to them directly. Obviously, if you want something new and you're not sure who to ask, you can go up to your line manager, and he most definitely knows someone who's good at that subject. So yeah.
I bet that person who also hands over to you, so like the last industrial placement student, I bet they're kind of like a role model, aren't they? Because you look back at that person and think, oh, this is you're nodding, Charles, I'm going to ask you this question. So so they handed all these, their projects over to you, and you're going to be that person in a couple of months' time as well. Do you feel daunted by that, or are you quite excited?
Sorry.
Charles, it's just you.
Sorry.
It's all right, love. You were nodding and smiling, so I thought I'd pick on you next.
Sorry, absolutely. Yeah, so the person that I took over from was absolutely a role model. Not only in the way in which he went about like his actual role, but also the way like he conducts himself, like in his when talking to various people, and that kind of it's definitely a role model.
Yeah, I suppose that's your first experience, isn't it? True experience of how to deal with people at Mercedes, how you'd speak to your colleagues and everything else.
Absolutely.
And I bet you learned quite some soft skills from that person, just about communication, things like that you might not have picked up on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one thing that's worth mentioning as well, that's such a key part of going on placement, and maybe more so here, like it's just such a key part, learning those key soft skills on top of the kind of fundamental technical as well.
Yeah. Go on.
Well, I was going to throw it out there, and just Charles, I'll stick with you just because you've just answered the question, but what kind of, personally, if you don't mind asking, what soft skill do you think you've improved on the most whilst being on the placement so far?
That's a very interesting question, actually. I feel like it's quite difficult to pinpoint, but just the way you engage with different people in the department. So everyone, of course, plays an abundance of roles in the department, and it's the way in which you communicate your ideas to each one, like what information you need to get across to various people, and perhaps some that you may not, in order to keep things concise. It's just kind of, I suppose it's more of an awareness rather than like an individual soft skill. I'd say that's
I think that's a really good point though. And I think, it's like that business setting, isn't it, as well, understanding how to communicate with different people, how to read an environment, a situation. And again, this is just another really good reason why anyone listening who's thinking about going on placement, they should do it, because it's so many personal skills, isn't it, that you get to learn about yourself, experience, and then you can take that knowledge on to the next step in your career. So absolute win-win, definitely.
That's what I was going to move on to, Jess. So the girls, I'm coming back to you, so Nicole and Amy, this time last year you were watching this webinar and I bet you were, a bit apprehensive before you putting your applications in, thinking, oh, am I going to be good enough and everything else? But from your point of view, to all of the hundreds of students, thousands of students who are watching this webinar now, what hint and tip would you give to students watching, say, right, just make sure you do X, Y, Z, or just like a little bit of a push to make them apply?
I'd say when you're applying, whether it's through your cover letter or when you're actually in an interview, just make sure your personality comes across.
Yeah.
Like, don't try and overthink it, and don't try and put down what you think people are looking for. Like, you've got to make sure that your personality comes across, because, like, first and foremost, everyone that's applying is going to be doing a relevant degree, but they want to know that you're somebody that has interests outside of work, that it's fun to be around, is going to be able to have a chat with them.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing that I'd say, is just don't put too much pressure on yourself to try and get the application right, because that isn't a right way to do it. You've just got to do it your way.
Yeah.
And just make sure your personality comes across.
So you mentioned like interests outside of work, Nicole. What interests did you put or mention that you think would set you aside from other people?
So I put down, I do quite a lot of sports, like team sports and things. So I play hockey at uni and that sort of thing. So I put that down, but I also do Formula Student.
Yeah.
So I wrote a lot about that in my application, just because it was quite a relevant thing, working within a team, sort of a similar environment.
Yeah.
But anything, even if you don't do Formula Student, anything that just sort of shows that you can work in a team, that you take the steps to do, like sports, say, or anything like that, it's all just really good things to put down on your application.
Yeah. And Amy, on to you. What hint and tip would you give?
I definitely agree with that about like being you, because they're actually recruiting at the moment for a few electronics roles. I've overheard my manager saying, oh, I don't know, he was really smart, but there was just something. You've got to get on with the person. And I feel like doing that, like, and yeah, I don't know, just talking about you personally is really helpful. Like the climbing and stuff, like we're going climbing tonight, like that kind of thing.
Cool.
Just the things outside, because everyone's doing the same degree pretty much. Well, I mean, mine's a bit weird to do electronics, but anyway, that's another story. But I don't know, just making sure you're kind of compatible and in line with what the company values are. Just definitely have a look at what we value. Obviously, it's quite obvious with inclusivity and stuff, and we've got, I don't know if Angela was going to talk about Accelerate 25, but diversity is something massive as well for us, so that kind of thing too.
I think it's so important, isn't it, to get out your own hobbies and interests there. But you two now are going climbing tonight. You've made friends obviously during this placement as well, and I think that's something that is not just about the experience of working for 13 months. It's getting new friendship groups and meeting new people as well, which is all goes to part to play in how important placements are altogether. Angela, did you want to finish up on anything?
So just a little bit about our application process. It is all online. Again, please don't wait till the last minute, because it will close at 1 minute before midnight on Sunday.
It's 10 days, isn't it, Angela? It's 10 days.
So we encourage you to look at all of our different opportunities. You can go via Grad Cracker, like Jess and Carla have kindly said. You can look at our videos, really kind of get a sense of what we stand for and what we're looking for. Please apply. We want the best and brightest, and we look forward to welcoming you to the team.
Thank you, Angela. So don't forget what Angela said at the beginning, the closing date, 17th of October. Do not leave it until the 17th of October to apply, otherwise you're going to get told off. Charles is going, no. Don't forget you can apply to more than one opportunity, but every opportunity that you apply to needs a separate application. Yeah, Angela's nodding her head. Good. I just need to second guess me here. And don't forget, everybody, that the webinar recording, so this whole recording will be on the Mercedes Formula One Hub tomorrow, and then we'll break it up into nice bite-sized chunks, which will be live on Grad Cracker early next week. So be like these guys. These guys, it's true to our point. Last year, they were all sat watching this webinar. So make sure you get your applications in. Me and Jess want to be speaking to you guys watching next year on the next Mercedes.
That'd be brilliant.
we want to get a bit of a family together, don't we, Jess?
Yeah, keep going, keep the trend going.
Keep it going. So good luck everybody who puts their applications in. Thank you everybody for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to meet you all. Jessica and I will be joined next week by Kinetic, so we're really looking forward to meeting recruitment manager Mike, who is a good friend of Gradcracker. Same time, same place next Thursday. But for now, good luck everybody this weekend. Good luck putting your applications in, and we'll speak to you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye everyone. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.